What's going on, everyone? Louis back with another album reaction and review. Thanks so much for hanging out. I hope you're having a great day. Today we're going to be going off script and listening to the next album from Radiohead, which is Kid A. Now, normally on the channel, I wouldn't want to react to the same band in back-to-back videos, just because there's so many bands and artists that I haven't listened to before, and I want to explore as much music as I can before we hop back into the same artist that we've heard on the channel in the past. But it's been a couple of days, and I just can't stop listening to OK Computer. I mean, it's literally been on repeat the past couple of days. I'm just in love with the band's overall sound. I love the singer Tom's approach on the lyrics with his storytelling and his pacing. The whole band has just kept me on my toes musically throughout that entire album, and I really just want to hop back in to the next album, and we'll eventually go back to the earlier stuff. But from what I saw online, OK Computer was actually a departure from their original sound that they came onto the scene with, and then Kid A was another step in another direction musically. So it's just a really interesting approach from the band. In fact, one of my favorite bands is The Strokes, and if you're familiar with The Strokes, a lot of their albums are vastly different from one another. Me personally, I even enjoy the albums that were not so well received. I think those are actually my favorite ones, just because the band decided to take a lot of musical risks that I really think paid off. So I'm excited to see how the band changed their sound in Kid A versus what we heard in OK Computer. So we're just going to go right into it. So Kid A came out in 2000. It is made up of 11 songs and is 47 minutes long. So give or take about just over 4 minutes per song. We're just going to go right into the first track, which is Everything in Its Place, track number 1. Okay. Interesting way to start out the album. It's definitely a different direction. That vocal track off to the side is sounding like a scratching record. Whatever you gotta do, man. It's like I'm going through a time warp or something with all these sounds going on left and right. But you know, the synths or the keys going on underneath everything is really just keeping it straight too. It's the constant that is going on through all this chaos. Even the synth pattern right here is still keeping me on my toes. So yeah, definitely a departure from what we heard in OK Computer for sure. Definitely went more into electronic than anything. Then they had all those layerings with the vocals, a lot of different vocal tracks, and they put a lot of different effects on them, whether they were fading in and out or they were turning them into almost like a scratch record. The synths were remaining constant through it all. Tom's approach on the vocals is also another constant in this first track, in that his phrasing still keeps me on my toes, and I'm not quite sure when he starts or ends his phrases. Overall, I can see how this first track could have been divisive for Radiohead's fan base. I get it. I understand it's a musical disconnect because you enjoyed an earlier version of the band and now they've adapted and evolved to a new sound. that's going to happen whenever a band takes musical risks like this. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the band is exploring and discovering new sounds and styles in their vocabulary, and it's up to the fans whether or not they want to go on that ride. I mean, it doesn't change the sound of the songs that the fans came to enjoy and listen to constantly. They still have those songs to go back to, and it's really up to them to go on that ride with the band moving forward. So we're going to go into the next song, which is Kid A. Sounds like a propeller. Sounds like a portal or something. Feels like a house beat. But it's got like this elevator music. I like the galloping of the bass. So the vocals have a auto feature, a robotic feature on it. But those earlier verses made it feel like it was a timeless track, like it was from the 50s. And so you have these musical ideas going over it that give it a futuristic feel. So it's like a battle between generations to me. A battle between the past and the future. Gives me Mac Miller's Swimming vibes at the end of So It Goes. Very ascending. Like an elevator going through space. Okay, wow. Actually, there's a lot going on in the lyrics as I'm taking a look at this. I'm not quite sure what the exact picture is, but there's something really sinister about the way he's telling this story. The first couple of lines, he says, "I slip away, I slipped on a little white lie." It almost sounds like it's the first line, "I slip away," sounds like it could be a shadowy figure or presence. Then the next line, he says, "I slipped on a little white lie." Sounds like it could be from the perspective of a young kid, because little white lie, it sounds like a little bit playful, a little more innocent type of action, right? And then next couple ones, we've got heads on sticks. So I'm thinking more of like a tribal setting of actual heads on sticks. And then you've got ventriloquists. So probably talking about puppets, trying to make it a little more playful. So you got this very dark and light contrast between some of these lines, like a yin and yang. And then you get to the middle of the song where he's saying, "Standing in the shadows at the end of my bed." So now it really feels like a shadowy figure, like some sort of, I don't know if you'd be like a ghost or like the kukui, but that's what I'm getting from that. And then the last couple lines, "The rats and the children follow me out of town. Rats and children follow me out of their homes. Come on, kids." So it sounds more like a, maybe a demon or a devil that lures kids out of their homes, like what you would see in a horror movie or something. There was a lot of different unique musical concepts in there. I liked the style of his voice. That robotic feature was actually doing a lot for me. Normally it doesn't, but I was really enjoying that because it was a fresh new take on music that I hadn't heard before. So now we have the next song, which is track number 3, the National Anthem. Starting with the bass, okay. So this one sounds a little more what we were used to in OK Computer. The bass is what's really driving the song, so see how it develops. Those effects over the whole thing sounds like a saucer. Very dark ride. I didn't know I needed the horn so bad in this. It's like funky, it's soulful. And now the choice for the bass at the beginning just makes so much more sense. Yeah, they're having a lot of fun with this. Shit. I don't want to be the bassist in this, to be honest. This is going to be one of the first songs I learn on bass. Whoa. That sounded like a total takeover, like a space invasion for me at the beginning, and then the way it developed into that horn section, it was very rewarding, actually. That song was almost 6 minutes long. You know, I can see how some people, that song may have gone on forever, and it felt like it may have not gone anywhere. I was so lost in that groove from the bass and the drums that I just wanted to sit in that for a while. And then with the vocals, and then once those horns came in, it just added this whole nother layer to the song. That song could have just kept going on and staying in that funky pocket, and I would have been totally fine. This is continuing to be evolution from what I'm seeing. This song was the closest to what we've heard in OK Computer, but it was still such a vastly different concept musically. I don't think there were really any horns in OK Computer, and they were so necessary for this track. I think that was a really smart choice from them to include that. We're going to go into the next one, which is track number 4, How to Disappear Completely. Some acoustic. That's pretty refreshing on this album. Those violins off to the side. The bass is just setting the footwork for the song, and then you have this violin over to the side, and it's piercing the track. It's like a thread that's going along with everything. Those little guitar effects sounds like we're underwater. Sound like whales. I always like to make those comparisons to whales. Sounds like a song in denial. Oh, the way the music is swelling right now. Wow. I didn't even want to speak during that. It was starting out a little off for me just with the vocals. I wasn't quite seeing the bigger picture with those initial vocals, and then as we got into what I consider the chorus, it sounded like a story of denial, whatever that situation is. whether it's, a missed opportunity or could be dealing with death. And, once we got into that final section with the orchestra and the way the music was swelling while Tom was singing, it just was hitting on so many levels. It was just like a wave of emotion just started hitting me, and it was so beautiful. The constants on that were, of course, the guitar and the bass, along with that piercing violin off to the side. And then whenever those drums came in, it really felt so grounded with what we've heard in the past from the band. It really just came together. And just like I was saying in the previous song, this was a very rewarding experience, because as long as you are putting your trust in the band, you really got to experience what they can bring to the table musically by the end. This is so different than what we were exposed to before, and it's a new set of colors that they're working with. I'm really enjoying. That was a really beautiful track, and that was another 6-minute song, but I was just so lost in the music, it felt timeless. So now we have track number 5, which is Treefingers. I don't see lyrics on here. I wonder if it's an instrumental. A very deep, low frequency song, at least how it's starting out. This is so transporting. I'm hearing these echoing little samples around, and it sounds like a beacon, whether you're in space or in the deep sea. It's such a vast sound that it feels like you're out in the emptiness of a vacuum, but it's also very calming at the same time. It's a very round sound. Even though there are no lyrics on this, it still sounds like a full and complete song. It's definitely an experience. We're just going to let that go into the next song. That was beautiful. The next song is track number 6, which is Optimistic. Really good tom work right off the bat. This feels a little more grungy. Hell yeah. Man, I was not sure how Tom was going to fit in that, and he was the standout. Those falsettos that Tom is doing is really fitting in that chorus really well. Man, I'm really curious if this had any influence on any of the grunge bands, or vice versa. That was a good line. Nervous, messed up marionette. It's almost like you anticipated getting extremely heavy right here, but they still keep it relatively light, even with the addition of the cymbals. There we go. I really like the choices that the drummer is doing on this track. Okay. Little funky outro. Okay, I want to pause it right there because it's going to go into the next song, but I'm so impressed by the band's approach to what I'm considering a very grunge song. I was getting a lot of different grunge elements from mainly the drums, with the way they were having the toms kind of layer that entire song, but then with the guitar work, the bass, kind of getting a little bit of Soundgarden, a little bit of Alice in Chains. Tom's approach on the vocals, how he was maintaining this lightness, this falsetto during the choruses. And then whenever we got into those breakdowns, they maintained a soft sound throughout the track. And normally, whenever you get to those breakdowns, you anticipate a heavier, more distorted heaviness that comes with grunge. And it was a total flip on what you anticipate, especially me, since I've grown up listening to those bands. That was very refreshing, and I'm very curious to see if that track had any influence on those bands or vice versa. I think that was really well done, actually. That's probably my favorite right now. And then a very interesting approach to add that little funky outro. The song is called Optimistic, so that made a little more sense to me to end it that way. The next song is In Limbo, track number 7, In Limbo. Drums sound distant like they're in the other room. Very subdued vocal track. You can just barely hear it. The way he spaces out his lines gives you a little bit of time to really soak in each of the lines. You can hear where it should probably start up again, but the space does so much for the delivery. That layering on the vocals between the harmonies. Another chant. I love the vibe of this song. Sounds like he's shouting, but it's still so soft and subdued. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, that effect at the end with how that song was developing. So that song, going back to the lyrics, I really want to dissect this one because there was that line at the end. He kind of puts it in perspective what this song is about. He says, the most beautiful woman in the world. So clearly this is meant to be some sort of longing or love song to somebody. First couple of lines, he says, I got a message I can't read. Since there is a lot of imagery towards being out at sea and lost at sea, it could be seen as a message in a bottle that is in a different language. But another way it could be taken is, I got a message I can't read, meaning someone gave you some sort of subliminal message that maybe you should have picked up on and you didn't get the message. It just didn't click to you. The next part where it says, I'm on your side, nowhere to hide, trap doors that open, I spiral down. Pretty much saying that you let your guard down being by this person's side and you didn't notice any of the traps that were around you, and of course you succumb. You're living in a fantasy world that seems pretty straightforward. You go to, I'm lost at sea, don't bother me, I've lost my ways. Seems very aware of his situation. I'm lost at sea, don't bother me. It sounds like he knows that he's in trouble, but he doesn't care. And then the next part, I've lost my way. So he's very aware of his situation. You're living in a fantasy world, the most beautiful woman in the world. And then the very end, come back. The way he's saying it sounds like he really misses this person. He wants them to eventually come back into his life. I liked the way he was delivering those messages. At least that's the way I was taking them. I wonder if the Doors were an influence on this song. I was getting some Doors vibes from this song. It felt like a song that came out in the 70s or 80s. And this was from 2000, so it had a very nostalgic sound to it. I mean, for a second there, I really thought that I was listening to something that came out maybe 50 years ago, which is crazy to me. I think that was really well done. I like that song a lot, actually. So now we have track number 8, which is Idioteque. Okay. Another house beat. Those synths kind of bring it back and set the vibe of what the song's direction may go. Sounds like a cash register. War imagery. This is a real showcase for Tom, for sure. Very creative approach to repeat the same lines, but it was very distinct each time. There's a vocal layer happening off to the side. I'm trying to figure out what it is. Is it different? The first of the children sitting with this breakdown for a little bit, a little instrumental. Doing some hi-hat work with the drums, kind of speeding it up a little bit. Synths bring it back in. Probably going to get some vocals here in a bit. But I like that we're getting this little break in the song. It's an interesting choice on the vocals. I don't know how to describe what I was just listening to, but I still really liked that. I think it was very rich with the way Tom was approaching the vocals. A lot of chopped up phrasings. He was repeating the same lines, but they weren't ever coming out the same. Even at the very end where he was repeating the first of the children, there was a couple of disconnected phrasings there, and it was still working. You can get really creative with your vocal approach, and that one was a great showcase for him. Otherwise, everything around the track, it was feeling like a house beat, a little bit of EDM. I liked the approach on the drums, the bass, and then those in and out samples that we were getting, those synths. Just an overall really strong track. So far across this album, obviously it is a departure from the band's previous sound, but I am really digging the way it's coming together. I don't really know how else to describe it, but these are some of the longest songs that we've heard in these reviews, and they're still flying by. I mean, even when they have these little breaks, I'm still vibing with it. You know, the song may stay in the same pocket for a while and may not necessarily be developing, but the groove is so strong, and I'm anticipating that next part that I am just sticking around for the ride. My anxiety isn't going up, nothing. I just want to enjoy it, you know? So the next song is track number 9, Morning Bell. What is that timing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 10-8. How is he able to find his pacing in this? That's crazy. This sounds like such a fun song to play. The drums are staying in that same pocket, but those are some of the most fun songs, to be honest. It's always fun to kind of lose yourself in the pocket and kind of take on that robotic drum machine persona. I like that a lot, actually. That was a cool little breakdown, actually. I really like that Tom is mimicking what the drums and the bass are doing. That's a really cool choice. And it's like you can barely hear it. You have to really pay attention. Oh, that's such a good choice on the drums. Ooh, those screeching guitars. Man. Okay, so that song is a great revelation because that song had a lot going on musically, rhythmically, very complex, and they were able to maintain a straight beat all the way through, even when they started developing and getting those little sections with the ride. Man, it was still staying in the pocket, and they were still able to find their way into the next part. Even when they did those little breaks and they came back into the mix, they were still on point. A lot of really cool choices with Tom's vocals, the way he was mimicking what the bass and drums rhythmic pattern was. As far as that revelation that I was talking about, it's mainly trusting the band that you enjoy listening to, because my dad and I were having a conversation about how he was growing up with music, and back in the early 80s and 90s, whenever CDs weren't as prominent, you had cassettes, and he was saying how he was putting on the cassettes in his car with his friends, and he was telling me how you couldn't go back and skip through the songs. You had to listen to the entire album, and if a certain song sucks, then you couldn't skip it. You had to listen to it and go to the next song. So he said, we used to listen to full albums all the time. I guess we really take it for granted how much streaming music has made listening to music so much easier for everybody. And around this time, with CDs, I'm pretty sure people put on this CD when it came out, listened to maybe the first one or two songs, didn't like what they heard, and then just never listened to the rest of the album. So there's people who grew up disliking this album and never got to experience the later songs on this album, which I think are some of the strongest, if not my favorites. And even the ones at the beginning, I still enjoyed what I was hearing musically. So like I said, it's really trusting the band, and maybe certain songs don't click with you musically. Maybe it takes a couple more listens, or maybe there's just a flat out disconnect and you just are not seeing their vision come to fruition. I just think this has so far been a huge success for Radiohead. I can see where the divisiveness can come from, but I'm happy to say that I am absolutely enjoying this album so far. And we have 2 songs left, so I'm going to say that this album is a complete success for me personally. The next song is track number 10, Motion Picture Soundtrack. Sounds like an organ. Sounds like some footsteps, so some sort of white noise commotion going on right now. Man, I love Tom's voice, and I love his approach on these songs. like that little callback. Do I need to say any more? Man, that is a really good song. I just felt like right when it started out, I felt like it was going to hit me. And it was a very vivid story that he was telling. I mean, with just a few lines, you get the whole picture of what he was describing. The choice of words just hit you in so many different ways. Let's say, you know, that second verse where he said, stop sending letters. Letters always get burned. It's pretty much saying in a very unique way, your effort is for naught, pretty much. You can do everything you can to try to get your message across, but sometimes it's just going to fall on deaf ears. And I mean, this can go for all sorts of situations in life, but it really feels like this is directed more towards love. And it was a very beautiful song. I really enjoyed that. And it's another confirmation to me that this album is amazing. So we have one song left. It is the shortest song, and it is called Untitled. Track number 11, Untitled. Feels like a departure. Yeah, that felt like the sequel to the first song, which was Everything in Its Right Place, where I think I mentioned that song had what felt like a space elevator, and there was a certain part that felt like an ascension. This felt like another ascension. So it felt like a continuation from the first song. So that makes sense. It feels like a very appropriate departure for this album. This album is a completely different offering from what we got in OK Computer, but I am very happy to say that I am enjoying this album on a different wavelength than what I enjoyed OK Computer. There is a lot that is clicking with me on this album, musically, rhythmically, lyrically, that we didn't get from OK Computer. Now, that's what I really enjoy about bands like this, is because they don't stay within their same sound, their same style. They explore different things. They keep it interesting for themselves and for their listeners. They have so many unique and differing styles and approaches in their songs. They're painting with different colors, and you have different songs to fit different scenarios in your life, whatever you're going through. If you're just trying to vibe, if you're trying to be honed in with your emotions, I think there are so many different offerings on both of these albums to fit a lot of different scenarios for yourself. I think they're continuing to deliver, and this has been an amazing week of music between these two albums. I am so blown away, and I feel like I've just discovered my third eye from this band. So thank you so much for being a part of this reaction. Please leave any thoughts you have on my review in the comments, and let me know any thoughts that you have on Kid A as an album, maybe your favorite song on the album. Otherwise, I hope y'all have a great rest of y'all's day, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.